Welcome to the Bostics, starring Lauren Bostic and Michael Bostic. Together, they are the Bostics.
Welcome to the show. And what I want to keep rolling what we were just talking about, which is this is your world, but everything these days feels like it's getting blended into some political conversation. This show is 10 years old now. Mm-hmm. We started health, wellness, marketing, relationships, how to build an online brand. Now you find yourself navigating these potholes of conversation. So I would love your perspective on it, because it's like, obviously this is your world, you're in politics, but does everything these days have to be political?
Shouldn't have to be. It's a real careful what you wish for situation, because, you know, I was in politics for many years and I believe very deeply in organizing and the power of politics to change people's lives. And so I've always wanted more people to get involved and participate in politics. Not quite like everyone is today, which is, it's like crisis to crisis, and it has infected almost every area of people's lives, and not always for good. And it's not like everyone's having, thoughtful conversations and debates about the best way to change the world. And so I think to the extent that politics has invaded everything in a way where it's like hobbyism, like people are sort of viewing it like they view sports, and who's winning, who's losing, and what's the drama of the day, and it's like a reality show. Like, I don't think that is obviously very helpful. But what we try to do is, help people who may be following the news but are not political junkies like us to sort of make sense of what's going on.
You give it in layman, like you make it digestible for people to understand.
Yeah.
I think like what's challenging in media these days, not just on this platform, but just in media in general, is, to your point, like it's become this spectator sport where there's one side or the other. One's going to win, one's going to lose, one's good, one's bad, depending on which side you're on.
Yeah.
And we've largely got to a place where I think we're around the similar age when we all came up, like you could have different conversations with different people and with different thought patterns.
Yeah.
Now doing something like this, like we'll put a trailer out sometimes, depending on someone leaning left or right, it'd be like, you son of a bitch. Like people, like before the content even comes out, and it's almost like you're allowed to talk to some people, you're allowed to not, like depending on which side of the audience you're on. And I think that's it's a challenge. It's a challenging time to be in media navigating all of that.
I think the internet has played a huge role there as well, because I still find that when I talk to people in person and people who may not share my politics, I can have like very reasonable conversations with them.
Yeah.
Like we may walk away disagreeing, usually we do, but you can have a civil conversation. I think when you are having all these conversations mediated by all of these algorithms, then what you're exposed to, and especially if you're someone in media, is you're exposed to the most extreme opinions on both sides. And it would be nice to say, oh, that doesn't have an effect on you as someone who's in media, but it does. It has effects on all of us. Like none of us are impervious to like seeing all that crap all the time. And so I think that actually, unfortunately, continues to like polarize the conversation more deeply. And that's something I talk about that a lot on. I have one podcast called Offline, where we sort of talk about how the internet is breaking our brains and society and making democracy harder. And there's a lot of research on it that it's not a healthy thing, both for us and for the country, for the world, to just be getting all of our information through our screens all day long.
Yep.
We have to talk about the art of speech writing.
Yeah.
Can you tell when a speech is written by ChatGPT?
Yes, for now.
Okay.
Because first of all, a lot of speeches aren't very good before ChatGPT came along. They weren't very good. And so, but, now that we've had, a couple of years of large language models, especially ChatGPT, you can tell the the M dashes and it's not this, it's that, and you're not just right, you're really right. Like it's just very recognizable.
It's like a rhythm.
Yes, it's a rhythm. I don't think it'll be like that forever, at least according to all the people who are building AI. I think it's going to get smarter and smarter. But I do think that AI will be able to replace a lot of speeches because, like I said, I think a lot of speeches were pretty pedestrian. I think it will then incentivize people who are really creative to write better speeches and to give better speeches. And I think that will sort of be the test.
You should launch a speech AI chat.
I'm sure that will come along.
You have to do it yourself. I feel like it would crush it by you.
Yeah. I view it as like remember the early days of social when like people would squeak in those ads that were like they were scammy and people would like think it was real, and then like over time you just get really good at recognizing like, hey, that's BS or it's not good. Same with like the AI slop. I think that is what will happen with AI with humans. I think we'll just get really good at recognizing, because a lot of people take a more pessimistic view and they're like, oh my God, we're never gonna be able to tell what's real and what's not. I think the opposite. I think humans are gonna get very good at being able to distinguish like that's human, that's not human, that isn't. I think we'll crave more of the human.
I think that's right.
You become the youngest political speechwriter in history. That's crazy. What was that like for you?
I mean, it happened by accident. I was in college. Went to the College of the Holy Cross, Massachusetts. I grew up in Massachusetts, just north of Boston. And there was an internship program my junior year in college. I interned for Senator John Kerry, who was my home state senator. And I did that because I thought maybe I'd be interested in politics, but it was a good opportunity to take an internship and go to DC for a semester with a lot of my friends who were going. So I did that. I sat in the communications office and I sat next to Senator Kerry's communications director, who also happened to be a speechwriter, and just learned a lot from him, especially as they were preparing to launch John Kerry's presidential campaign in 2003. And, he gave me the opportunity to start writing constituent letters, maybe an op-ed in a local newspaper. And so I got the taste of like writing for someone else. And I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. Graduated college, joined the Kerry campaign as an assistant. I was the press assistant to 6 different people in the press office. And that was like, wake up at 4 a.m., get all the news clips, fax them to everyone, because it was 2002, 2003, and get everyone lunches and all that kind of stuff. But at one point in the campaign, John Kerry was losing in the primary. Howard Dean was winning. They thought Howard Dean was going to be the nominee.
Forgot about Howard Dean.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people did. Someone mentioned today, like, remember Howard Dean was too crazy because he yelled a little loudly at the end of a speech?
Yeah, he seems pretty tame now.
Yeah, I know. But when John Kerry was losing, like, a bunch of people quit the campaign. Some people were fired. He had to mortgage his house. They ran out of money, and they needed a deputy speechwriter. And I originally asked if I could have the job, and they said, no, you're too inexperienced. You're only like 21. And then when they were really out of money and no one else wanted to join the campaign because it was a sinking ship, they were like, all right, you can have a chance being deputy speechwriter because this thing's probably going to be over in a couple months anyway, and we don't have to pay you more. I was making $24,000 a year. So I got the job. And then John Kerry wins the primary, and so I was speechwriter all through the general election. And then when we lost to Bush, my former boss in the Kerry campaign had gone to work for now Senator Barack Obama. At the time, he had been running for the Senate. And so he wins the Senate, and Robert Gibbs, who had been my boss, reached out and said, he wrote that 2004 convention speech himself. He doesn't think he needs a speechwriter, but I know he needs a speechwriter because he's in the Senate now and he's going to be giving a lot of speeches and he's not going to have time to write. And so would you come down to DC and have breakfast with him and see if you guys mesh? And had breakfast with Obama his first week in the Senate in January of 2005, and we hit it off. And he was like, I still don't think I need a speechwriter, but you seem nice enough, so let's give this a whirl, and we'll see how it goes.
When you met him, did you know right away the talent that he had? Because, I mean, I think he's probably one of the best speakers of the last few generations, right? Like, I mean, just like natural. I don't know how much of that is. Maybe you tell me it's not natural, but so talented. Mm-hmm. Do you recognize that right away, or is that something you guys work on together?
The first time I met him was at the 2004 convention in Boston. He was the keynote speaker, And I was on the Kerry campaign, and I was backstage at the convention. And my job was to go over a lot of the speeches from the different speakers at the convention. And I saw the Obama speech, and I remember reading it for the first time and thinking, oh, this is different. It's a pretty good speech. And then I got a call from my boss, who was on the road traveling with John Kerry. And he said, there's a line in the speech being delivered by Barack Obama, the keynote speaker, that John Kerry wants in his speech. And so we need to take it out. And I was like, okay, why are you calling me? He's like, well, you need to go find Barack Obama and take the line out of his speech. And I'm like, okay. So I walked down the hall, and he was practicing the speech for the first time. It was the first time he had ever used a teleprompter. So he was practicing. And I went up to Robert Gibbs, who had been my boss. I was like, okay, I don't have to talk to Obama. I can talk to Gibbs. And I told him about the whole story. And Gibbs is like, I'm not telling him to take out that line. He loves that line. You go talk to him.
Oh, God.
So that's how I met Barack Obama. And he came up to me within like an inch of my face and was like, are you trying to tell me I have to take out my favorite line? And I think I like blacked out for a few seconds. And then when I came to, a man walked up to me, introduced himself as David Axelrod, and he said, son, let's walk outside and we'll rewrite the line together. So we did. And then I heard him deliver the speech that night. And when I heard him deliver it, I was like, this guy is something special. And then when I sat down with him a year later in the Senate office, I had read his book at that point, but in preparation for sitting down with them. And I read Dreams from My Father. And when I read that book, I was like, the fact that someone who wrote this honestly is now in national politics and was this vulnerable in the book, and this like, if someone like this can make it in politics, like I need to be part of that.
And that was a different time in politics, because people weren't doing that at the time.
No.
Like, those books were real dry back then.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, he talked about like drinking, smoking weed, the cocaine mentioned, like it was all in there.
All the taboo stuff that you just couldn't do.
Yeah, and
then.
it was also just beautifully written, and it was like he talked a lot about race and just the things that politicians didn't do at the time.
So from your perspective, for people that are interested in giving speeches or speech writing, what makes a compelling speech?
Yeah, what makes a compelling speech is it should be as close to a conversation that you're having with someone in real life as possible.
Huh.
And
that's a good tip.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people sit down and there's the formality of a speech, there's the professionalism, and so you think you have to write it like as people especially do this in politics, but in all aspects of life, people write like they're writing for history, or they're writing to like read it in the book. And if you want to really connect with an audience, especially now where so many speeches or, commentaries are delivered just on a screen alone and someone's just watching it, you have to speak like you're just chatting with someone. And, it's not a hard and fast rule, because it needs to be elevated a little bit if it's a speech, but too many speeches like start up here at like 10,000 feet. And you need to write the speech as if you're trying to convince or, persuade or talk to just a friend at a bar or at a restaurant. That's what I always try to think. And you were trying to tell a story, right? Like a good speech is telling a good story. And so it should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it should grab people at the beginning. It should have humor. It should have some emotion. And it also should not be that long. No one has ever left a speech and said to themselves, like, that was a great speech, but I wish it was just like 5 minutes longer, 10 minutes longer. Like, and everyone writes too long, and speeches are always too long. So
take note, wedding toasters.
That's my main advice on a wedding toast. My main advice, because everyone, first of all the wedding speeches are like very cliche, and there's a lot of, talking about the process of writing the wedding toast. It's like, when I was told I was going to do this, I had thought about all the stories.
I would not want you in the audience when I was doing a wedding speech. Then I'd be like, fuck.
Well, the annoying thing is when so many weddings I've been to, even when I don't know the people super well, like family members giving the speech will be like, and I know there's an Obama speechwriter in the audience, and so it's always
you get the call out.
Great, good job.
You know what's so interesting when you're saying what makes a good speech? This is like very weird, but that makes a good piece of social media content too.
It does.
Like when I'm when I am like, when I hop on my Instagram story, I try to hit what you're talking about, which is like feeling like you are talking directly to the person. And you've seen people like Alex Earl, who's obviously blown up. And her whole thing is she talks to the audience like she's FaceTiming them.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, it's a little bit like creating a piece of content for social media, obviously on a bigger stage. But it's similar points.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar. And look, I think there's a slight difference if you're delivering a speech to a crowd of, 5,000 people, 20,000 people. Like, you're going to want some lines in the speech and moments in the speech where you get applause, or you get people on their feet, or you get people feeling emotion. So, depending on the venue and the audience, it can change a bit. But I still think it's a hard and fast rule to make the speech as conversational as possible.
So on the personality side, and I'm sure you've analyzed this and thought about it before, if you were to look at Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Trump, what do you think that because obviously like they all became president, and one is still president. What do you think each of their strengths are and weaknesses are as it relates to giving speeches? Because obviously like these people have been able to resonate with audiences.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start with just I think that people who rise to that level in politics have a confidence and a self-assuredness, and it is this belief that like, this is who I am, and this is what I believe.
Yeah.
And you like it or you don't like it. And, I knew that from watching Obama firsthand and getting to know him really well. You can clearly tell that from Donald Trump. And I think Biden has an element of that too, because I think he has been in politics, obviously, for a very, very long time. But, the Joe Biden, and I got to know him in the White House as well, but like the Joe Biden that was in public is the Joe Biden behind the scenes as well too. He is who he is, and he's okay not changing that. I think that for speaking, with Donald Trump, like Donald Trump is at his worst speaking, if we're just talking about the style of speaking.
Yeah, I'm just like the stylist.
He's at his worst when he has to read off a prompter. And you can tell that he is reading something that his staff wrote for him, and he doesn't like it because he has this feel for the crowd. It's also, it's the same as he's better in front of a crowd than he is when it's just the camera, because he has a sense of like what's working and what's not working. Obama was like this too. When he was in front of a big crowd, he knew when a line was working, when it wasn't, when a riff was working, when it wasn't. Then we'd go back and retool it, and he would use the ones that were working well and not. And so I think that that ability to feel and sense where the crowd was going and how it was reacting is like a strength for both Obama.
They can like feel the energy of what's going on in the room, no matter how big.
Yes,
they know how to react to maybe moments that weren't planned.
Yes, I think for Obama, one of the weaknesses, one of the challenges that we always had to overcome is he wants to over-explain everything. And if something's not working or he thinks something's unpopular, like his instinct is, okay, if I just explain more facts, more statistics, then like it's going to land. And I think in this attentional environment, even back then, when you only have people's attention for a short amount of time, you can't just be like going deep into the weeds on everything. And so we would constantly have to like cut, shape, polish, so that he was giving more of an emotional argument than like getting into the weeds on every single policy issue.
He needed to land the plane.
With Trump, it's like that, but in a different way. Trump's not really trying to over-explain, but he's just going on and on and on. And I mean, like the 2.5 hour rally speeches it's amazing to watch that he can just talk that long. I don't think it serves him that well. I think that, he's probably at his best when the cameras cut to him for like 10 minutes at a rally. And I don't think it necessarily works with the television audience, but it works with the people who go to the rally.
You know what though? Like, and I'm not so close to this, but when I just think about watching both of them give speeches, now that I'm like analyzing it in this way, which I've never done, there's something about the way they speak where you just feel like they're speaking to you in such a calm and sense way. They're speaking to you in such terms that you can understand. It's like, it's so digestible. It's relatable is what it is. No matter like what's going on, like they're able to deliver it in a way where you, like to your point, you feel like you're talking to your buddy and that they understand.
Is that them or the speechwriter though?
Well,
that part's them.
Because I think sometimes where, at least for me, like it goes over the head is when you feel like you're being delivered some very coordinated and like polished and designed thing.
Or someone uses way too big of words. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't get a thesaurus out.
There's something like a spider sense that I think kicks in all of us. We're like, I don't know if I trust that.
You know what they both do is they break the third wall a lot. And Obama's humor was always at its best when he was making fun of the game that is politics and letting people know, like, I know that a lot of this is bullshit, and believe me, like I'm still normal. I get that this is crazy. I'm just going to tell you about it. And Trump does the same thing pretty well.
Yeah, it's very human.
Yes.
And I think like what I think both of them have done, and Biden too a little bit, but what both of them have done is they kind of took us out of the Bush, Clinton, Reagan area, like polished political realm. And you talked about it a little bit with the book, and they made it feel like, okay, I'm participating in this as opposed to just viewing it and kind of trying to keep up.
Right. And because I think that, you know, it's no accident that sort of coincided with just trust in political institutions, media, all institutions going way, way down. And so people are more primed to think that what they're hearing from a politician or a business leader or anyone is bullshit. And so if it sounds like you are reading something that is tightly scripted or that you're like reading the stage directions, then people aren't going to trust you fundamentally. And if you sound like you're just talking to them, then they're more likely to trust you. And I think a lot of politicians have a problem with that.
Can you explain to the audience how you conceptualize a speech? Like say Obama came to you and he wants to talk about blank. You could give us a topic. How do you guys start to do it? Is it collaborative the whole time? Tell us the behind the scenes.
Sure. So let's say, last time I worked with him on something was the last Democratic convention when he spoke for Kamala. And you know, I would talk to him and say, okay, what do you want to communicate? Like, what is the one thing that you really want the audience to take away? What's been on your mind that's really like bothering you about politics or bothering you about the campaign or you think you want to say? So I just get his thoughts. And then he and I will usually just have a conversation about politics, what's going on, the news, and I will sit there and just type everything he says and just get it all down on a piece of paper. And he will sometimes have like an outline in his mind of where he wants to go in the speech. Like it is the real lawyerly part in him where, like, I remember when during the 2008 campaign, he gave this big speech on race about his pastor, Jeremiah Wright, and it was this big controversy. And so he delivered this big speech on race. And he called me the Saturday night before the speech at like 11 o'clock at night after he'd been on the campaign trail. We were giving the speech 2 days later. I was freaked out that I had to write it so quickly. And he was like, I'm just going to be stream of consciousness and tell you like what's on my mind. And then hopefully you can like put something together. And then he starts going like, all right, I want to talk about 1A, 2, 2A, 2B, then go through. Like he had off the top of his head the outline of what he wanted to say. Now that didn't happen all the time. But he's very good at figuring out the outlines of the speech. Partly, I think it's the lawyer in him. Partly, it's the storyteller because he knows that like the speech, a lot of political speeches are just like applause line after applause line, or like this is going to be quoted by the press, so I got to put this line in, but they're not all like connected together. So he's very good at connecting different parts of the speech into a story. So once we get the story of the speech, the layout, the logic, the flow of the speech correct, and I get his thoughts, then I go off and I'll do a draft and I'll write the speech. If there's research needed, I would have a team that would help do research for the speech, whether it's like finding an interesting anecdote or a quote from history or just policy research if we're doing a policy topic. And so I'd get all that input, finish the draft. I would send it around to all the relevant people in the campaign or the White House, depending on what it was. Then I would send it to Obama. It would either come back with a bunch of edits and markups, and he would take a pen and just sort of like rewrite and stuff like that. Or it would come back with very few marks on it and like a notepad, a yellow notepad just full of writing, which meant like he wanted to really rework the speech. And which I liked that, because whenever he put a lot of effort into the speech and a lot of himself into the speech, it ended up being a speech that only he could give, and one of the better speeches he would give. You know, I mean, when he got the Nobel Prize, we didn't have much time at all to write that speech. And I remember it was the morning that we left for Oslo that he handed us, I worked on the speech with Ben Rhodes, my fellow speechwriter. He handed us 11 pages of written material for the speech, plus the speech we had already written. And he was like, I like some of what you guys have. Here's what I'm thinking. Can you combine it all together and have it ready before we get on the plane tonight? And then when we landed in Oslo, he had to deliver the speech right after, like an hour after landing.
And this pre-ChatGPT, you can't just blend it all together.
No ChatGPT.
Is there a teleprompter there?
Yeah.
Yes. So he's reading a teleprompter as well.
Yes. And he's reading. And on that speech, I added the last page of the speech into the teleprompter as he was walking up to the stage. It was the closest we had ever gotten to not having a speech.
What's the worst speech you've ever seen in your entire life?
Wow. That's a good one.
Be honest.
I mean, you know, there's a lot of Trump ones that are pretty bad. I don't know that I could pick, like,
Biden had some bad ones too.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
he had some rough ones too.
Biden had some rough ones too. Not as rough as the debate performance is
But
the
you're
worst.
also coming off the back of like one of the, again, greatest speech givers
Right.
of all time. So it's like, it's a hard bar. You know, you already got to work with like the top.
I mean, there's speeches that are bad just because they're written poorly, or the person delivering them is delivering them poorly.
Or they plagiarize.
Yeah. But then there's also, we were talking about this recently, there's speeches, like sometimes we get in the habit of this in the White House sometimes because Barack Obama was such a great speaker, is people thinking that if there's a big problem, a speech will solve the problem.
Right.
And like, no matter what, if we just give a speech. And I remember back in 2010, there was the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf. And remember, it just kept spilling oil over and over, and no one could plug the hole. And Barack Obama was getting like so much criticism for it. And everyone was like, we have to give an Oval Office address on the oil spill. I was like, great. Do we have a solution to stop the oil spill? And we didn't. And I was like, this speech is going to be terrible, because no matter how well it's written and no matter how well it's delivered,
pissed.
people want the oil spill to stop. And if it doesn't do that, it was going to be judged a failure. So like, people who give speeches, and I do think that, and we talked about it recently because Trump's speech about Iran last week, the primetime address, was very similar. Like, the speech didn't have any news in it. So there
People
was
just don't want to be at war.
Yeah. Like he wasn't announcing the end of the war. He wasn't announcing more war. He was just like summarizing his Truth Social posts. So like, it wasn't judged well because it didn't do anything, didn't solve any problems.
What about a speech that blew your mind? Not political. Maybe it was at the Oscars. Maybe it was a TED Talk. What's something where you were like, damn, that person really nailed it?
I'm trying to think of who.
Those are hard questions, though.
Yeah, they're really hard questions.
I just think that I feel like you would point us to a speech where we could go watch it and be like, that's how you give a speech.
It's an amazing speech. God,
Someone just gave one, I feel like, at the Oscars, but maybe not this time. Maybe it was the last time, that was so good that had everyone standing and clapping, but I can't remember.
It wasn't
who it was.
Sean Penn.
Was not Sean Penn, no.
I didn't see Sean Penn's speech.
Neither did anyone else.
Okay.
He didn't show up.
I didn't show up.
I'm trying to think.
There was Matthew McConaughey's pretty good at speeches.
Yes.
He gets you going with that accent. He's got his mannerisms. There's something about him.
I
the way
like watching
he speaks pretty good.
I like watching some of these guys go and speak at college graduations.
Yes.
Jim Carrey's done a good one. Remember that one?
Oprah.
Yeah.
Well, Oprah's right?
Oprah's excellent.
Okay.
Charlie Munger did a good one.
Do you think that's natural or all contrived or both?
I think it is. I think some people are just naturally talented at doing that. Like,
Okay.
I think Oprah is just as good as people think she is. Like, when she gives a speech like that, you're like, oh, that's something that only she could do.
I want to switch gears with you a little bit here. When someone like yourself, who has the experience you have in Washington, being as close to politics and political leaders as you have been, what's your filter when you view the news or when you watch people cover politics, knowing what you know?
Filter in what way? Like, what am I?
Like, how do you just like, do you look at this and you're like, oh, this is BS. I know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. It's a talking point. Or you're like, hey, this is something I got to pay attention. Like, how do you consume now knowing what you know?
I mean, when it's news about politics in the White House, or campaigns, even though I've, now been out of politics since 2013, I think about my experience in the White House, my experience in politics, and try to judge what's happening based on that. So there's some sort of insight that gives me that I judge it on. I've also now been podcasting and in media for the last almost decade, and
you're a pioneer.
I don't know if I'm a pioneer, but it's been a long time now.
You're one of the early ones.
One of the early ones,
sure.
And so I judge a lot of the media content based on just what I've seen over the last decade. But look, I think we sort of fell into podcasting, and one of the reasons I like the medium so much is I do think television is a medium, and a lot of the television news broadcasts, cable broadcasts, we talked about this with speeches, like they are at a point where, because how television news and cable news is structured and how anchors speak, it's not how people consume information anymore. So if people are used to consuming information with, watching an influencer on TikTok or Instagram, and then they tune into the news and it's someone like sitting there with their papers and reading like their Walter Cronkite, then it's not going to feel as compelling because they're not going to feel as authentic. And there's going to be that distance between the person delivering the news or talking about politics and the audience. And with podcasting, like you're just sitting around a table, you forget that the camera's there, you're having a conversation with friends.
It's not sound bites either.
It's not sound bites. And so you just sort of let go.
And you have to clarify that, like you say something and something, oh, well, what did you mean? Like they're not used to doing that on these other platforms. It's like one question back, and then you're done. And
I notice it now because I still do cable hits from time to time. And whenever I'm on cable TV, I'm like, oh, I have like 2 minutes.
I'm terrible.
Then there's going to be a commercial
I'm
break.
terrible at it.
I still am not, like I've gotten better at it the podcasting has made me better because I now don't worry about the appearance. I'm like, whatever, it's going to be on. Usually I'm sitting in the studio, the podcast studio, so I'll just talk. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, but like at some point you don't care as much. You've like had enough reps that you're like, whatever.
Speaking of that, and I wanted to talk to you about this. So again, we started this show, if you could go back 10 years, we started it health, wellness. We were curious about the medium. We were listening to a lot of shows, people like Tim Ferriss and Rich Roll, like, self-optimization, a lot of that. And we just fell into this, and it's evolved into a medium where the types of people that will now come on shows like this compared to the early days is drastically different, right?
Yeah.
Like it was, back in the day, if any politician or any A-list person went on any show, it was like, in the podcast industry, it was like, oh my God, somebody, like I remember Tim Ferriss had LeBron James and people were like, I can't believe this happened.
I remember when Obama did Mark Maron.
Yep, that was huge too.
It was like people hadn't heard of a podcast before.
Yeah. And so, obviously we've evolved with the medium. Recently we had RFK Jr. on here, and obviously like that hits a nerve on both sides. Some people are very excited.
I'm sure everyone was thrilled.
Yeah. No, but what we appreciate about the medium is, whether you agree with someone's policies or not, like if somebody's actively in office, they're going to affect you in some kind of way. So like we had some clarifying questions. I've seen you talk about this in the past, where you say you think more people on both sides of the aisle should do more long form content. And one of the criticisms we got, which I read, a lot of them I ignore. I say, okay, like the people that are just angry because somebody's on, like ignore. People are like, do better, ignore. But some of the feedback was, hey, why do you guys have this person and not invite more people on the left? And what I don't think they see is, like, recently we invited Gavin Newsom on. Gavin, if you're listening, and if it got to him, not sure, but it for sure got to his people, it's a decline. And what I've seen doing this is there's maybe a willingness for more people on the right, or the perceived right, to come and do long form, and maybe less so on the left. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
I think that has definitely been true over the last couple of years. I think it's changing a lot. I mean, Gavin, I'm surprised he said no, because he's been doing a lot.
Well, he's got a new book.
I'll try to get to him.
Yeah,
I'll try to tell him.
And listen, maybe
I'll put in a good word.
Maybe he didn't even know, but I sometimes, like I think maybe one of his people saw it and they're like, oh, they had this on, and they think it's the perception is one way or another.
Yeah.
But
that for him is not a problem, because he has been among a lot of different Democrats Gavin's good about this, Ro Khanna's good about this, is like going on right-wing, or not right-wing, but even just like right-leaning or not political at all podcasts, and just like talking with people who may disagree with him. And Gavin has a podcast, and he's had, he had Charlie Kirk on, he had Steve Bannon on, so he's been trying this, like talking to people.
He's been trying to get into the medium.
I think
well, that's why I thought he would say yes.
Yeah, because I think, and look, some of these things is he's got the book and he's running around.
It also could be also the people. Like, we can't just blame Gavin. It could be the
anyways,
people around him.
what I'm addressing is, I think, like, as hosts, all you can really do is extend the invites.
Yes.
Right. Like we have, and what I've noticed, and again, I won't get into particulars and put everybody on blast. I did that for Gavin because I want to pressure him to come on. But what I've noticed is we're typically able to get a few more yeses for people that are maybe considered in the right camp than we are in the left camp. And I don't think it's just this show. I just think there's more people in that realm that are open to doing long form like this and having these debates. And I think maybe it's changing, and I just wanted to talk to you about it.
I mean, I think I hope it's changing because I very much believe that Democratic politicians or left-leaning political figures should absolutely be everywhere all the time. And I think the Democratic Party and Democratic politicians have been slow to realize that not everyone, in fact, most people aren't getting their news from CNN or MSNBC anymore.
We don't even have the news in our house anymore.
I mean, we don't watch it in our house. It's not on, and I do it for a living.
That's crazy.
And
that's interesting to hear you say that.
Yeah, because it's not. Well, I mean, also part of the problem is we have 2 little kids.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I can't put the news on.
Listen, I go to my 82-year-old dad's house, and that thing is blasting, and it's just like, it takes me.
I put it on mute when I go.
It's PTSD right back to childhood.
It's funny. No, my parents live up in Thousand Oaks, and my wife always notes that when we walk into their house and like the TV's on MS Now, and it's like, and she's like, they just always have that TV is on. Yeah. But I think that Democrats were slow to realize that people are consuming information in so many different ways, and like you just have to be there. And I don't think it's a partisan reason for like, oh, we don't want to go in more right-leaning spaces or places that aren't friendly to Democrats. I think it is a fear of like, am I going to do well? Am I going to be normal? Am I going to like there's this sort of innate caution that I think for Democrats is born of now having lost 2 elections to Donald Trump, and most Democrats in the party don't trust their instincts anymore because they're like, well, we lost the first election and then we won, but then we lost the second.
That
and
actually makes sense.
Now we don't know what to say. And so they'll be all stiff and, like everyone's like, oh, Joe Rogan, everyone should go on Joe Rogan. Yes, but I could also like count on one hand the number of Democratic politicians, if I was working for them, that I would trust to go on Joe Rogan, because a lot of them I think have no idea what they were getting into.
Because he's so smart.
Just because he would throw them questions on topics that they are totally not prepared for.
Yeah, like you could go down a lot. But funny enough, I think that's what people are looking for. It's like, I want to hear your perspective on policy and ideas. I also want to hear how you think about parenting. And I also want to think about what you do for a hobby and what you like. And are you going to watch the new Star Wars movie, The Mandalorian? I want to I think people want to know.
They want to know them. I think they want to know the behind the scenes.
And what I've always viewed it as, because we've been doing the show for a long time, is whenever you start to broach those conversations, say, hey, I want to have this person on. So, well, what are the topics? What are the questions? I'm like, no, we're going to just have we can give you ideas of what we want to talk about, but there's no there's not set talking points. There's no set questions. It's we're going to have a conversation. And I think that throws some people.
We have in the Democratic Party, we have a lot of front row kids who were in class. They were like in the front row, raising their hand, asking for more homework. And I think the challenge is when they're in those settings and you're asking them like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? They know the answers, but in the editor's going in their head, and they're like, what is safe? What if I say this and this upsets this person? If I say this, then this person's going to be mad. And what if people don't like my hobby? And what if my hobby's lame? Like the self-editing starts, and they're just too nervous to. Which is, again, that goes back to like what Obama has, which like you have to be comfortable in your own skin and just like, this is who I am. And these are my answers. And if people don't like them, whatever.
Well, Obama can do it, and he does some shows, and I think he's great at. Obviously, Trump does. And to Secretary Kennedy's credit, and I'll just say, there was no preempted questions. There was no script. We made him sign a release like everybody else ahead of time. There was no edit. It was like, it just had a conversation, and he answered the question. And I thought that, we tried to keep it very like down the line of like what's going on, particularly in health and health policy. But like we threw some questions at him and he at least had answers. And I think like people appreciate that because they want to see that the people in charge are at least thinking about trying to figure out a solution, whether you agree with the solution or not. Like we want to know like, hey, what are you guys working on over there?
Yeah.
How are you thinking about taking care of us? Right. That's, and I think people appreciate when, even if they falter a little bit, or even if they kind of stumble and they are trying and you're seeing like they actually are thinking about it. Like I think we recognize the human element and appreciate people doing that.
Yeah. No, it's just, I think it's also the only way anyone makes progress on anything is like having real conversations, sometimes difficult conversations, having sometimes disagreements and debates, lives that aren't like perfectly mediated and planned and ahead of time. Like that's how like real change comes about in persuasion.
Speaking of persuasion, you said politics is a persuasion game. What's and this is from the team. This is not my question. I will say this is a team question.
Sure.
They said, what's a specific political belief that you've held that you were successfully persuaded to change?
Political belief that I successfully persuaded to change. Well, I think this is sort of over the last couple of years, but when I was a Democrat coming up in Democratic politics, anytime you would give a speech about Israel, or a Democratic politician would give a speech about Israel, you would talk about how amazing Israel is and our closest ally and wonderful. And it's like you have to be pro-Israel no matter what. And that's like that's like a core thing to the Democratic Party. And I think even when obviously October 7th happened and I was just horrified. I think it's like what Hamas did was like the worst things you can do to other human beings. And I think when there at first was criticism of Israel's prosecution of the war in Gaza, I was much more likely to think, well, that's just people who, are on the far left and they don't, and then as more came out and the war went on and the killing continued, I really did start changing my opinion of the Israeli government and Israel and what it was doing in the Middle East. And it's hard in the Democratic Party even now. I think it's a big split in the party because there's still people who are like, well, that's our closest ally in the Middle East. I also think here in the United States, I very much believe that we have a president who is, has authoritarian tendencies and wants to turn the United States into something that I don't, believe it should be turned into. And so I'm always like, why couldn't that happen in Israel as well? Right? Like that's just, I think that's what Bibi Netanyahu and a lot of the Israeli government has done there as well. So my opinion on Israel, and not to bring up an issue that is, I know this is an easy issue that everyone agrees on, but it's changed over time.
So this is, I think like, I highly consider myself independent largely because I've never been in politics and I try to take issue by issue. But I imagine when you have the party affiliations that someone like yourself has and are that close and you start to change your opinion, like, is that a challenge to do? Do you lose friends over that? Do you start to have pushback? Do you have professionals reaching out to you saying, don't do that? Like,
yeah, you do. I mean, on the, people have gotten mad at it. Well, it's funny because when I was in politics, it didn't happen as much because you're really in the bubble when you're working in politics. You're either in the White House, you're on a campaign, and so you're just surrounded by people who think like you, and there is a bunker mentality, especially when you get to the White House. I think that's true of every administration of both parties. Once I started podcasting and being a political commentator, you still have some of that. Like the first couple of years, I think I still had that. Now, I am much more willing to say something that I believe, and if people on my side get mad at me,
yeah, I mean, well, you've like really broken out and built your own thing, built your own media company show, so it's a bit different. But I imagine that's a struggle because it almost feels like you're like abandoning.
I mean, this wasn't like a policy issue, but the most criticism we got was after that first debate with Biden and Trump, and we all right after that debate said, Biden should really consider dropping out.
Yeah, but I mean, like, do people? I mean, like, I think all of us at the time were like, well, there's something off a little bit.
Well, that's why we're like, are you? And we would get like so much pushback from the Biden campaign, from friends of ours in Democratic politics that we've had forever. It's like, what are you guys doing? You don't know what you're talking about. You were always jealous of Joe Biden and the Obama White House, and it's a vendetta that the pod guys have,
God.
and Hunter Biden was very mad at us. But of course, I was like, well, do you guys realize what most of the country believes right now? But that was, and it's not like it was tough. I was very happy to do it, and I think we were right.
Well, I mean, like the country, we all have eyeballs.
That's
right?
what I said. Yeah, exactly. But it was
Well, I think, credit to you, because I think the people that didn't do that and kept up, maybe were like carrying on a facade that they knew was not true. It's like I think a lot of those people lost a lot of credibility, right? Because it's like the truth always kind of shines through, and we can all see what's going on. And so if you didn't do that, I don't think you'd have the platform you have now.
We were just talking on an earlier episode about how one of the highest signs of intelligence is flexibility of the mind and being able to change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like sometimes in this day and age, if you change your mind, it's the torches and the trolls coming after you. We have to be able to get to a point where people are allowed to change their mind.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, I'm sorry, just because I thought, 5 years ago that I liked this or that doesn't mean I have to think it today.
Well, and as it relates to politics too, and again, I'll pick on the RFK issue one more time. Like, agree with his policies or not, whatever. I want to hear somebody come on and give a counter idea or a better idea if you disagree. What I don't like is these people just fighting and attacking each other constantly. It's like, okay, if we all can step back and say, well, maybe there's a health issue going on in the country. We're all kind of aware of it. If that's not the right idea, I'm not highlighting a specific policy, then what's the better idea? But when people just scream and yell and say this person's this or that, I think it does a disservice to everybody in the conversation.
Well, RFK Jr. is a great example, because I think that if Democrats just write off the MAHA movement as a bunch of kooks, then that is not only wrong, but politically dumb. Because, I heard some of the episode where you guys talked to RFK, and a lot of it is stuff that Michelle Obama could have said when she did Let's Move as an initiative in the White House. Mm-hmm. And I get it. I'm very into health and wellness. I fiercely disagree with him on vaccines. And I also wish that a lot of what he believes about companies and food companies and what they do to our food, that there was actually more regulatory pushback in the administration. I think he has wanted some of that, and the rest of the administration has said no. Which I think
glyphosate issue he brought up.
Yeah, I think it
that
says something about the priorities of the rest of the administration, and I think actually some of the stuff that I probably agree with him most on, he hasn't made as much progress on as some of the stuff that I don't agree with him on. But I get that there is complexity there.
Yeah.
Even recently about Iran, right? I'm very against this war, and I want it to end. And Tucker Carlson gave a 40-minute monologue on his show about the war that I listened to this morning, and I posted it, and I'm like, I know I'm supposed to say I don't agree with Tucker, but he made a few good points. I'm like, I thought that 40 minutes of this, there were only a few things that I disagreed with here.
Well, and this is where I think that we're seeing the breaking of the traditional parties in this country, because there's people now that are there's things that again, we've been around a little longer than some of the audience. If you go back 20 years, some of these policies that we're all talking about used to be on the left, and now some were on the right, and they've flip-flop positions. But somebody's like, wait, I'm still on this side, and how'd that get over there, and that's over there. And so it's confusing, right? And Bill Maher's been on the show, and he talks about that all the time, where he's like, he always says that he didn't change, things have changed. And I think what we're viewing here is that people are wanting to take common sense, practical approach. I'm talking about the majority of American people. They want to be healthier. They want their kids to be okay. They want to thrive. They want to be safe. They don't want to be in endless war. Those are things that people want. And I think sometimes if it doesn't align with, they feel scared to say that. But we're all kind of looking for the same thing, which is prosperity for ourselves and our families.
Yeah, and look, sometimes people can very much agree on what the problem is and have very fierce and legitimate disagreements on the outcome. Like healthcare coverage is a great example of that. You can have, most of the country thinks that we pay too much for healthcare and that everyone in the country should have access to affordable healthcare. How to get that done is obviously a point of fierce disagreement with both parties. And I I have my views and other people have their views, but at least like you can agree on a problem. I do think there's two different things we're talking about here. One is sort of policy differences, and the other is like a larger sort of political strategy, how we talk to each other, whether we give each other grace for making mistakes, for not using the exact right words for everything, for changing our minds, for going back and forth on things, for making mistakes. And I think that both parties have had issues with that, especially over the last decade, especially in the social media age. And this goes back to our conversation about sort of going on other podcasts with people you disagree with. I think there was a time where it was like, don't platform this person, or don't say that, or you can't be seen with this person, or you can't be associated with this person.
But they're not going away.
They're not going away.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like if you go on someone's podcast or you're associated with someone, you have to agree with all of their views.
I look up to Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters, I think, interviewed Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
No one on the internet said, you're giving Saddam Hussein a platform.
Guess what? He had a platform.
I'm a media outlet. If I like to interview people of all different walks of life, and I like to understand why people came to that conclusion, it doesn't mean that I'm co-signing them. And a lot of people that come on here I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But it's up to the audience to form their own opinion. I don't have an agenda to work through the person to get to the audience.
Well, and when sometimes the audience gets upset, what I always try to tell folks is like, when you're listening to something or watching something, the point of it is not to make you feel that all of your pre-existing views are validated, because maybe it is, but if that's the case, then like, what did you get from that? It's like, it's comfort food, right? Yeah. It's like, I believe this, I listened to this, and I was like, absolutely.
Right.
It's why you turn Seinfeld at night to go to sleep, right?
It's not ChatGPT.
No, like I want to be challenged. I want to listen to a challenging conversation between people.
Right.
Like what if, like the criticism of that we get sometimes, and I take it seriously, is the four of us on Pod Save America, we agree a lot. We're really good friends. We've been around each other forever, so it's like it's hard to disagree. Yeah. But sometimes we try to like have debates, or sometimes we try to bring people. We often try to bring people on that we don't agree with, because I do think, and we're trying to do that more, because I do think that for the audience, you want to hear our perspective, but you also want to hear perspective challenging us, because otherwise it's just a whole bunch of people agreeing with each other and you, and I don't know that anyone gets anything out of that.
I think that you have to think, what kind of dinner party do you want to host?
Yeah.
We don't want a dinner party where everyone is
slapping each other on the back and saying
I'm bored
you're
with
right
that. I'm bored to tears. Like, I'm meditating with my eyes open. I gotta be honest. I need some different color. I want some different opinions. I want a little fight. Maybe it's Thanksgiving. Aunt Bertha says something weird. I need like a lot of different energy.
You're dramatic, Lauren.
No, I want different opinions.
I at the Democratic convention last time in Chicago, we were in our little area and got a knock on the door, and it's these two young kids, and they were like, "Oh, we're from Jesse Waters' show. He would love to have you on the show. Would you like come upstairs to the Fox studio right now at the convention and go on Jesse Waters?" And some of my staff were like, "You're crazy. You can't go. You're going into the Lion's Den. You're not prepared." And I was like, "Why not? Who cares? What's going to happen?"
I agree with you.
And it was funny, because I walk up there and it's like being in the mothership, and it's like there's Laura Ingraham, and they're all walking around. And I went on Jesse's show, and he gave me shit, and I gave him shit back, and we like gave as good as we got, and it was fun.
My prediction is that kind of content, what you just said, that's off the cuff and not so planned out and methodical, and is going to go viral. I think you're going to see that's what people want to watch. They want to watch different people having different opinions.
He's done very well with it. I mean, again, like, whether he's done very well building his show independently with this kind of conversation and just having different people. I mean, and I think it's an eclectic group that he has on.
That's a hard one too, because I've seen Here's the Show, and it's like when you have a bunch of people who are all remote and they're all in the boxes, and it's like it's a lot, because then you're yelling over that. I'm like, maybe it's good TV, but maybe that's not for me. But like sitting around a table with a bunch of people, you disagree, like that to me is, I could do that for sure.
This episode is brought to you by Zysol. I am so allergic to cats. The worst. And I use Zysol Allergy 24-hour. Okay. If you're like me, if I like even smell a cat, I don't feel good the next day. So it's really important that I always have my Zysol Allergy 24-hour relief in my handbag. It starts working, and I can tell you guys this quick. It's like in as little as 45 minutes. Zysol relieves allergy symptoms, including sneezing, runny nose, itchy, watery eyes. I get a lot of watery eyes. And an itchy nose and throat for 24 hours. It gives you continuous 24 allergy relief that won't fade. It's also designed to be taken at night, so it's already working at full strength in the morning when pollen levels are the highest. I'm also sensitive to pollen, and Austin is difficult. 24-hour prescription strength relief from outdoor allergies such as pollen, ragweed, grass, and trees. And then you also are going to get relief from those indoor allergens, such as dust, mold, pet dander. Visit www.zysol.com for more information. That's XYZAL.com for more information. I am very much about unique tops. I really like a unique top because I am hosting and podcasting so much that the top needs to be really cool, because that is what is on camera. And I love a bodysuit because it really sucks me in and makes me feeling hot. There is this bodysuit that I just bought by Alice and Olivia. It is the Keenan long sleeve polo bodysuit. I sized up, okay? It's black. It's amazing. It has the best collar. It's so chic and it really holds me in. I have been a fan of this brand for tops specifically for such a long time. This brand just hits all the things that I want. It has a sophisticated silhouette. It has a lot of like corporate cool girl essentials. And it has the perfect party top. I love their bodysuits because the founder, Stacy, was on the quest to design the perfect pair of pants back in 2002. And she's evolved the brand into this incredible contemporary lifestyle brand. And I'm telling you, each piece is a wearable work of art. You have to see the bodysuit that I'm referring to and you'll get it. But I'm just a fan of this brand in general. If you're just looking for a great blouse or if you're looking for a nice collared top or something that just is really flattering, Alice and Olivia has you covered. Exclusively for the Bostix listeners, Alice and Olivia is offering 15% off everything from new arrivals to bestsellers. Visit aliceandolivia.com/skinny and 15% off will automatically be applied to your cart. That's aliceandolivia.com/SKINNY to get 15% off. Exclusions may apply. Watch Running Point Season 2 only on Netflix for a new season of the hilarious basketball comedy Running Point. I watched this with Michael. It was fabulous. Season 2 promises all the things. Higher stakes as Isla Gordon, who's Kate Hudson, is determined to prove her leadership of the Los Angeles Waves is permanent rather than a surprise. Temporary fix following last year's team scandal. However, she remains unaware that her brother, Cam, is secretly maneuvering behind the scenes to reclaim his former job as head of the sports empire. To survive family power plays and intense board scrutiny, Isla must rip up her old playbook and create a new game plan to stay on top. The roster grows this season with star-studded guest appearances from Ray Romano, Max Greenfield, and cameos from Octavia Spencer, Nicole Richie, Scott Speedman, and Lisa Rinna. Also, you should know that her brother Cam is played by Justin Theroux. If you're like me and Michael, you'll be cuddled up watching this on the couch with some popcorn and a big blanket. Watch Running Point Season 2 now only on Netflix.
If you're still using toxic, hormone-disrupting cleaning supplies in your house with artificial ingredients and chemicals, what are you doing, especially when Branch Basics exists? And you know, especially if you listen and watch this show, that there's a better, cleaner alternative that does just as well at cleaning your house, but without all those nasty chemicals. Branch Basics is made from plant and mineral-based ingredients, and Branch Basics is human-safe and fragrance-free, making it perfect for families, especially those with babies, kids, or pets. And the Branch Basics refill model makes it even easier to keep your home clean year-round. All you need to restock is the concentrate. It's available at Target, Amazon, and branchbasics.com, making it more convenient than ever to have human-safe cleaning products. Again, it is insane to me with what we've learned and how we know that some of these chemicals and toxic cleaning supplies can harm us, that we're still using them. Once I had the founder of Branch Basics on this show with Lauren, and we learned all about the things that they're doing at this company and that you can clean your house or your space just as effectively without all these toxic cleaning supplies, we've never looked back. So check them out. Don't wait any longer. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your pets a favor, and switch to Branch Basics. And here's the good news. Branch Basics is now available everywhere you shop, at Target, Target.com, Amazon, and of course, BranchBasics.com. Tossing the toxins has never been more convenient. And for anyone grabbing the premium starter kit, you can still get 15% off at BranchBasics.com with our code SKINNY15. Just use code SKINNY15 for 15% off the premium starter kit at BranchBasics.com. After you purchase, when they ask where you heard about them, please make sure to mention our show. So the way I look at it is we're all entrepreneurs, business people, and I look at it through the lens of like, if I'm trying to do a deal with someone, or if I'm trying to, build something with someone, and I start by just personally attacking them and screaming at them and telling them how shitty their ideas are, it's going to be hard for me to do anything with anyone. And what I worry about in American politics, and I guess now world politics in general, is that if that's how every conversation is starting and every kind of negotiation is starting, like, how do you ever solve anything for anyone? Because if the idea is that you're a terrible person and all your ideas are shit, and then right back, same thing, like you could never in the business world get a deal done that way.
Well, in politics, the analogy is the people I think who understand how to persuade the best are people who've knocked on doors, like the organizers. Because if you've been on a campaign and you have to go knock on a bunch of random doors, first of all, sometimes you're knocking on doors and just reminding people who are already going to vote for your candidate, like, get out and vote. But a lot of times you're going into neighborhoods where people either might not vote or they might vote for the other candidate. Mm-hmm. And you get all kinds of people on the doors. And it's not even like you get like hardcore right-wing people with all right-wing views. You get people with, like everyone in the country, such complicated views. And so they could be very liberal on one issue and very conservative on the other. And sometimes they could give you a crazy conspiracy theory that's not true at all. And sometimes they could be nice, and sometimes they could shut the door in your face. And so I always find that people who have been on campaigns, who have organized door to door, and have talked to actual voters, usually are better at persuasion, more practical, more pragmatic, wherever you stand on the ideological perspective. You could be far left and pragmatic because you've knocked on doors, and far right and pragmatic. They are more pragmatic and persuasive than people who only argue about politics on the internet.
What makes someone persuasive?
I think empathy, to me, is like probably the most important value there is, and I think about this all the time as a former speechwriter, and now in what I do, is put myself in the shoes of someone listening to this who may not agree. Put myself in the shoes of the audience that I'm speaking to, or that the person the person that I'm writing a speech for is speaking to. And what are they thinking? What are their hopes? What are their fears? What are based on their backgrounds, based on their demographics, like what might they be thinking about politics? And then also, once you've thought about that, what do we have in common? Because the whole thing falls apart if we cannot find in this country like the thread that connects us all. Because if we don't have that, and look, that doesn't mean that we're always going to agree on everything. Like we are divided, and we're probably going to be divided for a long time. I think the hope is, can we live together even with these divisions and these disagreements? That's the test now, right? Because otherwise the whole thing falls apart. And I think you need to have politicians who, and this is why I always think of, like, there's this thing now when a Trump voter has someone in their family who's deported. They're like, oh, well, good, you voted for that, And it's like, anyone who experiences a harm like that, or who's thinking twice about the political decision they made, I want to be open to that person and like welcome them over and say, like, come on over to our side. And I think the Democratic
you don't
Party,
want to kick them while they're down.
No, I think Trump did that well in 2024. And now I think a lot of the people that came over to Trump in 2024 are probably now the first ones to leave, because he hasn't quite delivered what they thought. But I think in the campaign, they were very skilled, and RFK Jr. is an example of that, of like people who hadn't been in the tent. They were like, welcome, you can be part of our crew. And I think Democrats need to do that as well.
What do you think needs to happen in the country? And again, if you could wave a magic wand for us to get to a place where we're not so divided.
I do think that we put too much emphasis on the actions of politicians and political leaders. I think that if we only see politics as a transactional enterprise, which is every couple of years, politicians campaign, they ask for our votes. We say, okay, this one seems better than the other one. I'm going to give you my vote, and then I'm going to go back to my life, and then you're going to go fix my problems. And if you don't, then I'm going to be pissed off, and then I'm going to throw you out, and then I'm going to elect someone else. Like, we will continue to be disappointed and divided. I think more people need to be involved in the act of governing. And when something doesn't happen between elections, reach out to your member of Congress, run for office yourself, get involved in your local community. I do think that because politics has become so nationalized because of the media environment, and like everything's about politics, everything's not about local politics or state politics, everything's about national politics. And I think that real change happens on a local level. And so I would love to see like more, I think if more Americans got involved in their community, in their neighborhood, first of all, you would encounter more people who don't agree with you necessarily. Even if you're living in a blue area or red area, there's still people with different views. And so you would learn more to work with other people and get things done with other people who you don't necessarily agree with. And that would filter up, as opposed to us hoping that we're going to elect the perfect person to then filter the good feelings and the unity down, right? Like, I think that we just see politics too much as transactional right now, because look, like you get the politics that you fight for, that you deserve. And if we don't have good people running for office, then the way to change that is for other people to run for office. And it's for other people to get involved in politics. And so I do think that like political participation and more political participation, not just political hobbyism, which I think is just watching politics unfold, getting nervous about politics, commenting on politics, yelling online. I think treating it as a sport. I think less of that and more of the actual work of getting stuff done and changing things on a local level. I think that's going to help a lot.
Is this where I announce my run, Lauren?
There it is.
If I win an Oscar, will you help me write my speech?
Wait, you got to be an actress.
Absolutely.
You
never know. I'm multifaceted. I might win an Oscar. I'm going to put it out there. Will you help me write my speech?
Or if you have to give any speech.
The number of, especially since I moved out to LA, the number of potential award winners who like through their agents or other people have been like, hey, will you write? So, and I'm like, I'm out of that business, but I will. I usually say, I'm happy to look at a draft and have a conversation with the person. But I can't do anything from scratch because I don't have the time to do it. So I've done that a few times.
I feel like you've already been to like the speechwriter's version of the Super Bowl.
That's a big ask.
It's like big ask. This episode is brought to you by Neuro, the makers of the world's smartest gum. I love things that make me smart. I love things that make me focus. And I love things that give me energy. So what is Neuro Gum? It's a neuro, energy, and focus smart gum. It's powered by natural caffeine, L-theanine for calm and focus, and vitamin B12 and B6. All things that we regularly talk about on the show to enhance our mindset, to increase our focus, and to give us a greater output of energy. I love things like this. And here's the thing. When you're chewing other gum, you're just chewing. With Neuro, you're chewing for clean, sustained energy, sharper focus, and it makes you feel good. You're calmer, less on edge, and you make it through the day with more clarity. So if you're a gum chewer and you like chewing gum, leave the dumb gum behind and switch to a smart gum like Neuro. What I love for me personally is I'm constantly running around. I'm thinking about 1,000 things at once, and I like to be efficient with my time. We talk about time on this podcast all the time. Between the show, between the brand stuff, parenting, all of it, Neuro is the thing that I grab when I need to be sharp, but I don't want another coffee sitting in my stomach. I stop drinking coffee before noon so I can sleep, but sometimes I want that extra pick-me-up. So what I do is I chew a piece of this gum, and 20 minutes later, I'm clearing the inbox and I'm getting stuff done. What I also love about Neuro is there's no sugar, no aspartame, and no crash. Every chew reminds me I'm making a smart choice for my body. Neuro also offers caffeine-free options for all-day wellness support as well. So check them out. For a limited time, you can get 20% off your first order at neurogum.com by using code SKINNY. That's neurogum.com and use code SKINNY for 20% off your first order. You can also find Neuro at CVS, Walmart, and Amazon. Enjoy. Quick break to talk about batch. I want to talk about something that doesn't get said enough. Sometimes you're going through the day and you just don't feel like yourself. Maybe you feel a little down. You can't really explain it. You're not really sure what's going on. Maybe it's your sleep that's off. Maybe your mood's a little bit harder to manage. It's this sense that you're kind of running on empty while everyone else needs you to keep going anyway. This is why I love Batch. They have micro mints in this CBD nighttime gummies that are incredible. But today I want to talk about the micro mints. The micro mints that Batch produces are sublingual CBD and CBG mints designed for daily calm and mood support. Not sedation, not a buzz, just feeling more like yourself. They dissolve under your tongue for fast absorption, and they're built to be sustainable for daily ritual use. Think of them as replacing the end-of-day glass of wine without the next morning fog or the effects of alcohol. And sublingual delivery means it absorbs faster than a capsule or gummy. You can feel it right away. And the CBD and CBG combination targets both calm and mood, not just one or the other. It's designed to be a daily ritual replacement, not a crisis intervention. The goal is just getting back to baseline. No grogginess, no dependency, no pharmaceutical side effects. And they have fully transparent lab testing so you can verify every ingredient. I like products like these. I like things that make you feel better, make you feel like yourself. And I love that there's lab transparency. The fact that it's not positioned as a cure and they're not promising to fix your life. It's also founded by engineers, not marketers. And they have a full certificate of analysis available so you can look up every batch. So check them out. Right now, Batch is offering 30% off site-wide. And yes, that applies to subscriptions. So you can lock in that discount on your monthly supply. Go to hellobatch.com/skinny and use code skinny at checkout.
Most wellness products today are built for mass appeal, big ingredient list, fixed dosing, and a lot of guesswork. Troscriptions was built from a completely different starting point. So here's the deal. It was created by 2 practicing physicians with over 50 years of combined clinical experience, alongside a team of healthcare practitioners, not in a boardroom, but through the years of working directly with thousands of patients. Basically, what they've done is they've created science-backed, pharmaceutical-grade, physician-designed, and rigorously tested formulas delivered in a completely novel way to help you address these needs. So needs like more energy, more focus, more sleep, less anxiety, and better immune system function. If you're like me, you're on a mission to simplify and accelerate your path to health optimization to feeling better now. Let me ask you guys something. What does your body actually need right now? Is it more energy, better sleep, less stress? Most people are trying to optimize their health, but they're using tools that weren't built for precision. So enter Troscriptions. They have a diverse product line. So they have things that help with enhanced focus, productivity, calm, relaxation, stress, all the things. There's a completely new way to optimize your health. Give it a try at troscriptions.com/skinny or enter code skinny at checkout for 10% off your first order. That's TROSCRIPTIONS.com/skinny for 10% off your first order. Eden Rock St. Bart's times The Skinny Confidential. This collaboration has been years in the making. I have been going to Eden Rock properties for a very long time, and I fell in love with the way that they thought about branding. Every single detail. They don't miss anything. It's such an experience. And when I thought about what brand I wanted to collaborate with, Eden Rock immediately came to mind. So we went down to St. Bart's and we sat with their team and we conceptualized what this collaboration would look like. And so it's here. After a year and a half, it is live. The Eden Rock St. Bart's times Skinny Confidential red ice roller. It's in their signature red. It has a gorgeous, look at this. Silver roller. It's so beautiful. It's very summer, I could see this in an ice bucket while you're on the beach enjoying some rosé or a margarita. Goes right in the ice. And then we also launched mouth tape. So it's red too. So you're going to get those red lips, very summer-esque. And again, it's in the Eden Rock St. Bart's branding. And then we launched facial towels. Everything is limited edition. It's very exclusive. Once it's gone, it's gone. And these facial towels are plastic-free. They don't have any formaldehyde in them. And they're so adorable to throw in your beach bag. I use them to wipe my kids' hands. I use them after an oil cleanse. This collection is so major. I'm so excited about it. And it's so fun to see the Skinny Confidential come to life in red. You can shop our collaboration at the link in the show notes or on shopskinnyconfidential.com. And if you're at the Eden Rock St. Bart's property, you can also shop at the Eden Rock St. Bart's boutique and the spa. Eden Rock St. Bart's, wherever you are.
Okay, I want to switch just a little bit of gear one more time with you and talk about your business.
Sure.
We have tremendous respect for you and what you've built because we know ourselves firsthand how hard it is, one, to build a show, but then to build a media company beyond the show, create other shows, work with other people, have that be successful. When did you decide you wanted to start Crooked with your partners, and what was the motivation behind it?
The podcast that is now Pod Save America started as a podcast called Keeping It 1600, and we did it during the 2016 campaign, and we did it with The Ringer, which is Bill Simmons' media company. And I had known Bill previously. We both went to the same college. We got to know each other when he came to the White House to interview Obama. And he said, we do sports and entertainment and culture, but like, I'd love to do politics. It's an election year. Would you you've moved out to LA. Would you be interested in like doing a podcast? So, me, Dan Pfeiffer, Tommy Vitor, John Lovett, we all started this podcast, and then we all had our other jobs, and we thought Hillary Clinton would win, and then we would be done, and we would go back to our lives and be retired from politics. And then Donald Trump wins.
You didn't know that one?
Yeah. And then Donald Trump wins, and we were like, oh, maybe
Curveball.
Maybe we're not retired from politics. And maybe, we had talked before about when we were in the White House, oh, the media is failing because of this, or we don't like it because of that. And wouldn't it be, we should have more progressive media companies, and wouldn't it be cool to start one? And it was always sort of a conversation you'd have intermittently. And then once Trump won, we were like, we should continue doing this podcast, but we should build the media company that we've talked about, and just started from scratch and started Pod Save America. And we, so there was Lovett and Tommy and I sitting at my kitchen table in West Hollywood at the time. And we hired a woman named Tanya Sominator as our chief content officer, and she had worked at the Obama White House. We got introduced to her through my now wife, and we had her. We hired Sarah Wick, who was our chief, our COO, again through a friend, and she had like worked on some startups. And then we hired an assistant, and it was literally the six of us sitting around my kitchen table. We went to the Bank of America in West Hollywood, and we were like, we'd like to open an account for our media company. And the woman's like, great. Do you have money? And we're like, no. Did we need money? She's like, yeah. We're like, do you have $10? Here, let's open it. I mean, it was just so, like, we had no idea what we were doing.
Did you form a company at the time, or you just?
We formed a company. Yeah. We like talked to some lawyers, but like, I would say
it was raw.
Hiring, I mean, you guys know this, like hiring people to do that, to like build the business is the most important thing you can do.
When I started this, I tried to find a CEO that would, I was like, okay, now I got to get a CEO to do it. And nobody, like, I had this woman, and she at the last one was like, I don't want the job. And I said, well, who the hell? I was doing something else. I'm like, well, who's going to do that? And then I was like, well, I guess like I have.
Well, and you realize at the beginning, you do everything.
Everything.
And
everything.
You're in every meeting, and your mind is pulled, and your time is pulled in a million different directions. Yep. And now the founders, we mostly do just hosting. And, we do, we're on the board. And so we have board meetings, and we do big strategic directions and have, meetings, but we have a CEO who's like a very experienced CEO and an adult, Lucinda Treed, who's been at the company for a while. And thank God for her, because now most things happen in the company and we don't even know.
But at the time when you guys did it, similar to this, I think people like now everyone knows. Like I used to explain to people, like we used to create social videos that we would put on her Instagram story, showing people where to find the podcast application, because at the time, people were like, what the hell is that? And now now I just call them shows at this point, right? Because they're audio, video. I mean, there was that weird period, like, is it going to be video and audio? And like that was a big thing.
I know. But we've all just recreated television.
Exactly, but people forget there was also like much fewer ways to monetize, so it was hard. There was very few people taking the medium seriously. It was like the weird stepchild of media. It's like, oh, you're doing a podcast.
It was
like,
other.
It was like, I'm sorry you do that. Like, And so the reason I have so much respect for you is because I think for the early people that were able to like slug through it, and like kind of form the market. Like now, if you want to do something like this, yes, it's more competitive, but the market's very well established, and there's some huge tailwinds, and you can make real living doing this. But at the time, it was like, is this going to work or not?
Yeah. Well, look, we had a theory, and it wasn't a business theory. At least it wasn't, thought of like that. It was like, okay, what is missing in political media right now? What is missing in political media is, we all just worked in politics for the last 10 years, and the conversations we would have, even in the most heated, serious moments in politics, were still accessible to people. We had gallows humor when things were bad. We joked around when things were good. We approached the job with joy. We were like, made friends that are our friends for life in this. And like, what if we could bring that to the public? Because I think right now, most people think of politics as what they see on cable news or what they see when a politician gives a speech, which is stilted, boring, self-serious. Yep. It was basically the people who were in political media were too self-serious, and they weren't treating the topics with the seriousness they deserve. And we wanted to flip that and say, like, let's treat these issues like they are life and death serious issues, but let's do it with humor about ourselves and not take ourselves too seriously and joke around and just be who we are, you know?
Well, and clearly it resonated. Like, so, no, I just thought I wanted to hear the story because obviously from afar, we've viewed a lot of what you've done, but what I find interesting about early adopters in this medium, if you it kind of just, a lot of people that became successful, it just started as like a passion or as like a need to fill a gap that they weren't, like for us, same thing. Like we just weren't finding what we were looking for to service our own show. It was like, okay, well, we'll just like do this for fun and maybe if it works, it works.
I'll never forget, like it was maybe a month into the company and we were invited to the Upfront Summit here and Kara Swisher was going to interview us on stage. And she sits and she's like, okay, so what is the business plan? Like, what is the revenue plan? And John Lovett just goes, he's like, honestly, we just turn the microphones on and then the money just starts coming. Like, that's just been how it's working so far. She's like, what? And we're like, but that is like, and it was a joke, but it was also like, we did not have this like detailed business plan the whole time.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Democracy or Else, How to Save America in 10 Easy Steps. Go check out the book. Pod Save America. What else? Where can everyone say hi to you?
Yeah, you can find, I'm unfortunately always on Twitter all day long at Jon Favs and Instagram.
Okay.
And I also host Offline with Jon Favreau. You can catch that all the time, and Pod Save America and our YouTube channel. We're always just churning out content on the YouTube channel.
You're busy, man.
Very busy.
Congratulations, John.
Thank you for
coming
this,
on
man.
the show.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.